Do you know what water tastes like? Think about it for a second. It's something so common and ordinary that we take it for granted. I'm not talking about the water you gulp down while swimming in the ocean or your neighborhood pool. I'm talking about the supposedly purest form available today, bottled drinking water. Bottled water has a very distinct taste, at least to me. I can easily tell the difference between bottled water and tap water, and can even taste the difference between brands, much like a wine connoisseur can recognize the difference between bottles of Chablis. I can also tell how long ago a bottle was opened. There is something about the flavor, or lack thereof, that makes the taste unforgettable. And it's not some weird superpower, it's just a quirk that I've begun to appreciate over the years and much more recently. My friends and family don't know about it, and I haven't even told my wife about it, and that's my story. Last year, Lauren, my wife, started buying these little spritz bottles of flavoring to add to her water bottles. The flavoring was supposed to add zinc to plain water. Personally, I don't like it very much. It tastes to me like someone spitting out chewing gum into a bottle and shaking it up. Anyway, she decided to try them out on me. I tried it and told her that I prefer pure water. She didn't get the joke because she continued to surreptitiously add a flavored substance to the bottles from time to time. This periodic tinkering has been going on for a couple months now. I try to be polite about it, but when she's not looking, I change the water to unflavored water. And then, at our annual summer barbecue for the whole neighborhood, something happened that I didn't expect. While I was working 3 stoves and not paying much attention to anything but steaks and burgers, Lauren walked by me and shoved a bottle of water in my hand. When a party is held at our house, I don't like to drink alcohol, so I carry a bottle of water with me all night. Without really thinking much about it, I took a sip and realized it was one of her flavored ones. I didn't take a sip, but bent over to check the propane tanks and spit it all out so no one would see. I didn't spit it out because of the blackberry flavor, but because of something else I didn't recognize. There was a faint metallic taste along with a hint of something that resembled sulfur. I didn't know what it was, but I definitely wasn't going to swallow it. I left the bottle between the propane tanks and moved on to cooking. But for some unknown reason, an alarm went off in my head. As nonchalantly as possible, I looked around at those gathered in the backyard, smiling and continuing to cook. Everyone was either deep in conversation, stuffing their stomachs, or bouncing around in the pool. Everyone except Lauren and Bob. They were sitting on a chaise lounge and furtively watching me. I wonder what for, I thought. They seemed to be having some kind of serious conversation, glancing at me from time to time. And how had Bob gotten here? I don't remember inviting him. Bob is one of Lauren's co-workers who lives a few blocks away and has been showing up at every event we've been to as of late. I never thought much of him until today. The anxiety continued to howl. When all the steaks were served and the burgers were spread out on a plate on the picnic table, I turned off the burners and closed the lids. Lauren looked at me, and I caught her gaze and pointed to the kitchen door. I stepped inside and grabbed another bottle of water from my personal stash. Removing the cap, I noticed it had been opened before me, and sniffing it, I found the same metallic component and a hint of sulfur. Maybe it's just a defective batch, I thought. I set it on the counter and turned sharply to my wife. "What's wrong, Chuck?" she said with her sweet, slightly curved lip smile. Nothing, just a restocking. I think we got a bad batch of water. It has a funny flavor." "Oh, I don't see how that could be. You probably just ate something. That's what gives it the aftertaste. What did you do with the one I gave you?" Thinking quickly so I wouldn't get in trouble, I made up a little white lie. "Oh, I finished it. Here, I've come for another." She smiled and ran her fingers through my hair, looking me in the eyes the whole time. "Okay," she said, taking the bottle I'd just put on the counter and handing it to me. "Take this one and go outside and keep an eye on our guests. I'll clean up a little here." As I walked down the path to the pool, Bob got up and went inside. I noticed because that damn alarm in my head was howling louder than ever, and every time I looked in his direction, it went up an octave. Something damn weird was going on, but what was it? I made my way through the crowd of friends and walked to the side door leading to our bedroom. As I entered, I could hear voices coming from right outside the door, either from the hallway or the bathroom. It was Lauren and Bob. As quietly as I could, I tiptoed to the door and listened. "I don't know," Bob said. The guy who gave it to me said it affects everyone differently. Some people feel the effects right away, and some take an hour or two. Bear with me. Well, I'm too damn horny to wait, Lauren growled. I want your pants off right now. Damn it, Lauren, don't ruin a good moment. As soon as these partygoers disperse, we'll have our own party. Bear with me. You're the one who wanted me to fuck you to death while he sleeps in bed next to us. I don't even know why, since he was always a good husband to you. Yes, he's been a good hubby, but he's too vanilla, too predictable in bed. I want a little excitement, a little danger without jeopardizing everything I've worked so hard for. And you, sir, provide that little bit of danger. And you're certainly not vanilla. Yeah, well, I don't want to do anything to lose you either. And remind me never to cross you. You have a very angry temper. Well, if you want me to be patient, you'll have to kiss me to put things off. There was silence, and then a moan that I'd heard many times before, usually at night. The sensation in my stomach was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. My insides were on fire, and my heart was pounding harder and harder. The images in my head were like a poorly duplicated Asian movie as years passed before my eyes. The screen in my head replayed every moment that had passed since I first saw Lauren across the room in our European literature class, each scene repeating the same dialogue. Lauren repeated over and over again, "I want your pants off right now. My head was about to burst." "Now do you have enough to hold on to until your hubby falls asleep?" Bob asked in a whisper. You betcha, lover boy," Lauren said, answering his whisper. "Now get out of here before someone sees us." I walked out the side door again, but I didn't go back to the party. Instead, I walked in front of the house where everyone had parked. I needed to be alone and think about what I had just heard, so I sat down on the porch steps and began to reflect on my life. For some unknown reason, I still had my water bottle with me that I had pulled out of the refrigerator just a few minutes ago before my life changed. When I realized what was going on and what was in the water, I threw it into the yard. I sat there for a very long time without anyone bothering me. Memories of the past mingled with fear of the future as thought after thought ran through my mind trying to make sense of recent events. I knew what was happening now, but I needed to understand what would happen next. I needed to put an end to the games that were being played at my expense, and I needed to inflict as much damage as possible on the criminals, one of whom, for now, but not for long, is my wife. Afterward, I turned my attention to the bottle of water I had thrown on the lawn. An idea formed. Then a smile appeared. It was time to get up off my ass and do something. I grabbed the water bottle and walked back to the party. With all the control I could muster, I found Lauren and said, "I need to run out and get a beer. I'll be back in a few minutes." She put her hand on my shoulder. "Do you think you're allowed to drive?" I looked at her and said, "Yes, I haven't drunk anything but water after all. I'll be right back." I turned around and left her standing there. As I closed the garage door, I caught a glimpse of Bob approaching her. In the garage, I poured half the water bottle, added a couple of extra ingredients, gave it a good shake, and put it in the cup holder on the center console. I had to stop at the drugstore before going to the liquor store. I remembered that my grandmother always kept something called syrup of ipecac in her medicine cabinet and threatened us kids with it. I never dared to cross my grandmother because I knew what ipecac syrup was for. Now it was perfect for my situation. When I reached the liquor store parking lot, I rinsed a gulp of water from the bottle out of my mouth. Without swallowing, I spit it all out onto the front seat. Then took my new purchase, walked over to the dumpster next to the building, and drank half the bottle. Threw the rest in the trash can. My stomach churned as I stumbled and trudged to the store on very shaky legs. Being about halfway to the counter, I exploded like Vesuvius. Everything I had eaten in the last 24 hours erupted onto their nice, clean floor. I collapsed and curled up in a ball, shaking like a leaf in the wind. The vomiting continued while the clerk tried to walk around the puddles to see if I was alive or not. He quickly gave up and called 911 when I started moaning. Before the ambulance arrived, one of the best police officers in our city. I'm sure she thought she was just going to find some drunk fallen down in a liquor store, but when she saw me and the convulsions shaking my body, she changed her mind. Or maybe it was just my imagination lying there. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" She shouted in my ear. "Oh." "Sir, what happened? Did you have too much to drink?" Just a bottle of water." My wife gave it to me. In the car. I threw up in her direction. Luckily, she got out of the line of fire in time. I saw a police officer take the water bottle from my car while paramedics loaded me into an ambulance and took me to the hospital. Once at the hospital, they did all sorts of blood tests and drained what little I had left in my stomach. I lost consciousness after they put a tube down my throat and then into my stomach. A while later, the same policewoman and what I assumed was a doctor came into my room and woke me up. Huh? Where am I? Mr. Barry, I'm Officer Park, and this is Dr. Wojciechowicz. Can you answer a few questions? Yeah, I think so. I'm a little dizzy, though. What's wrong? Sir, you passed out at ABC Liquors. Do you remember being there? Yeah, I went to get a beer. How much have you had to drink today? Nothing. When we have a barbecue at our house, I don't drink. I may have to drive some of the guests home at the end, so the only thing I drank was a couple bottles of water my wife gave me. That's about it. Honestly? Are you sure? She asked. 100%, yeah, and a couple more bites of hamburger. Okay, then I think we may have a problem here. I'll let Dr. Waterhowitz tell you the rest. The man in the white coat began to speak. Mr. Barry, the water bottle that the officer took from your car contained a mixture of a sleeping agent called triazolam, a strychnine-based rodent poison that you can buy at almost any hardware store, and digitalis purpurea, a common plant called foxglove. All three were in doses sufficient to give you this attack, and if you had not been brought here at once, you would probably have died within a few minutes. We're going to have to keep you here for a couple of days to make sure there are no neurological or organ problems associated with absorbing this combination of toxins. Now you'll be given intravenous fluids to flush out whatever's left. We'll be able to tell you more in a couple days, but for now, all you need to do is rest. Let the nurse know if you feel anything strange. I mean, anything at all. And Mr. Barry, I have to say you're a lucky man. Luckily, your body rejected the toxins. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Frankly, you're lucky to be alive. In my opinion, the compounding of this mixture of poisons couldn't have been an accident. Someone mixed it for you in a big way. The room got eerily quiet. Officer Pack excused herself and went out into the hallway to answer her cell phone. The doctor silently patted my arm, smiled, and walked out. I just turned away from the door and smiled too, but the smile turned into a frown when I thought of Lauren. When Officer Park returned, she looked worried. Mr. Barry, I just spoke to another officer who came to your house to talk to your wife. When he told her what happened to you, she ran out into the backyard and started screaming and yelling at one of your guests, Mr. Robert Michaels. From what the officer told me, they both accused each other of putting something in your drinking water. The relationship between the two of them turned into a fight, so the officers had to separate them. There was a lot of yelling, screaming, and other accusations that I can't talk about right now, but after they calmed down a bit, both were taken to the station. Your wife and Mr. Michaels will be questioned so we can find out how they were involved in your predicament. Depending on their statement, charges may be filed. Whoever did this to you is going to be in serious trouble. They'll be charged with attempted murder. Nothing could be more serious than that. Right now, you just do what the doctor says, rest, and don't worry about anything. I'll leave you my card, and if you have any questions or remember anything helpful, you can call me anytime. Oh, and it's safe to drink the water here. At least that's what I was told. Good night, sir. I didn't have a good night. But they had more. Epilogue. Lauren and Bob got 3 to 5 years in state prison for second-degree assault. I asked the state attorney for leniency because I didn't want revenge, just justice. They took a plea bargain when it was offered to them. Otherwise, the state would have charged them with attempted second-degree murder. Probably with good behavior, they'll be out on parole in 2 years. The guy who gave Bob the sleeping pills got 1 year for distribution of a controlled substance. He will have to walk around with an ankle bracelet for a year. Bob's wife filed for divorce after the conviction. Everyone at the party could be heard screaming with Lauren and Bob accusing each other of who put poison in my water and who fucked who. News of their affair spread quickly. I've been divorced for some time, too. The only time I talked to Lauren was a meeting 30 minutes after the verdict. She apologized about 1,000 times. All I asked her was, wasn't that what she meant by a little excitement and a little danger? I haven't seen her since. I haven't talked to Bob. I keep waiting for him to get out of jail before I have a heart-to-heart talk with him, or should I say, a talk with a baseball bat. Now, when I drink the water, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth.